The crucifixion of Jesus Christ stands as a central moment in Christian theology, marking the pinnacle of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Yet the events that followed immediately after Jesus' death, as recorded in the King James Version KJV of the Bible, hold a depth of theological and symbolic significance that continues to resonate through centuries of Christian faith. In this exploration, we delve into the profound meaning behind four pivotal events: the darkness that shrouded the land, the tearing of the temple veil, the earthquake and splitting of rocks, and the resurrection of saints. These events, occurring in close succession, unveil layers of divine purpose, cosmic impact, and the triumph of Jesus' sacrificial death over sin and death itself. Number 1. Darkness over the land. The darkness that enveloped the land during the crucifixion of Jesus holds profound symbolic significance. It was not a mere natural phenomenon, but rather a supernatural manifestation marking the gravity of the moment. The darkness from the 6th to the 9th hour, from noon to 3 p.m., symbolized several key aspects. The darkness can be seen as a visual representation of the spiritual darkness brought about by sin. In Christian theology, sin is often associated with darkness, signifying separation from God and the moral decay of humanity. The darkness during Jesus' crucifixion underscores the weight of sin and its consequences. The darkness may also symbolize the divine judgment being poured out upon Jesus as he bore the sins of humanity. It reflects the seriousness of God's judgment against sin and the sacrificial nature of Jesus' death to atone for those sins. The darkness during Jesus' crucifixion fulfills prophecies from the Old Testament, such as Amos 8:9, which speaks of a day of darkness as a sign of judgment. This fulfillment underscores the divine orchestration of events leading to Jesus' death and resurrection. Number 2. Tearing of the temple veil. The tearing of the veil in the temple at the moment of Jesus' death carries profound theological significance, symbolizing access to God through Christ's sacrifice. The veil in the temple separated the Holy of Holies, where the presence of God dwelled, from the rest of the temple. Its tearing from top to bottom symbolizes the removal of the barrier between God and humanity through Jesus Christ. It signifies that access to God is no longer restricted to a select few, such as the high priest who could enter the Holy of Holies only once a year. Through his sacrificial death, Jesus opened a way for all believers to have direct access to God. This act emphasizes the central role of Jesus as the mediator between God and humanity, reconciling them and offering salvation to all who believe in him. The tearing of the veil also signifies the inauguration of the new covenant promised in Jeremiah 31:31-34, where God promises to write his law on the hearts of his people. This new covenant is based on faith in Jesus Christ and grants believers access to God's presence and forgiveness of sins. Number 3. Earthquake and splitting of rocks. The great earthquake that accompanied Jesus' death and the splitting of rocks holds symbolic and cosmic significance. The earthquake and splitting of rocks symbolize the cosmic impact of Jesus' death on creation. It signifies the upheaval and transformation brought about by the crucifixion, with creation itself responding to the pivotal moment in history. In biblical imagery, earthquakes are often associated with the presence and activity of God. The earthquake at Jesus' death can be interpreted as a sign of God's involvement in the events unfolding, emphasizing the divine significance of Jesus' sacrificial death. The splitting of rocks can also be seen as a foreshadowing of the resurrection and the hope of new life. Just as rocks were split open, symbolizing the breaking of the power of death, Jesus' resurrection would bring forth new life and victory over sin and death. Number 4. Opening of graves and resurrection of saints. The opening of graves and the resurrection of saints after Jesus' death are unique events mentioned in Matthew's Gospel, Matthew 27:51-53, carrying symbolic and theological implications. The opening of graves and the resurrection of saints symbolize the victory of Jesus' death and resurrection over death itself. It demonstrates the power of Jesus to conquer death and bring about new life, foreshadowing the general resurrection to come. The resurrection of saints at Jesus' death signifies his authority over life and death. It affirms his role as the resurrection and the life, as he had earlier declared during his ministry, John 11:25-26. These events serve as a confirmation of Jesus' identity as the Messiah and the fulfillment of Old Testament prophecies regarding the resurrection and restoration of the dead, e.g., Isaiah 26:19, Ezekiel 37. In conclusion, The events immediately following Jesus' crucifixion, as depicted in the King James Version of the Bible, reveal profound truths about the nature of God's redemption and the victory of Christ over sin and death. The darkness that veiled the land, the tearing of the temple veil, the earthquake, and the resurrection of saints all converge to form a tapestry of divine purpose and cosmic significance. The darkness symbolizes the weight of sin and the judgment borne by Christ on behalf of humanity. The tearing of the temple veil signifies the opening of direct access to God, inaugurating a new covenant of grace and reconciliation. The earthquake and splitting of rocks speak to the cosmic impact of Jesus' sacrifice, breaking the power of death and signaling the dawn of new life. These events are not merely historical occurrences but timeless truths that continue to resonate in the hearts of believers. They affirm the central tenets of Christian faith: the atoning sacrifice of Christ, the hope of resurrection, and the promise of eternal life. As we reflect on these post-crucifixion events, may we deepen our faith, embrace the reality of God's redemptive love, and live in the light of Christ's victory over sin and death.